Hello, and here I am back in Scarborough again. Today I thought I would go and visit the Whitby Regatta, but I couldn't find a hotel in Whitby, so I stayed in Scarborough and caught the bus early in the morning. The bus wends its way to Whitby, stopping off at Robin Hood's Bay and tackling some fairly steep hills, and the weather seems nigh on perfect. However, as becomes apparent as I approach Whitby, there is a problem. Mist. Lots of it, particularly over the sea. Not a problem, I think. It's only 9:15 in the morning. It will have burnt off by the time the Red Arrows put in an appearance at 1:30. In the meantime, I wander up to West Cliff, passing a particularly fearless seagull with its eye on breakfast leftovers, and a statue of Captain Cook that doesn't look anything like Jesse Pinkman. Up on the cliff I find a collection of old cars, although to be honest most of these were still a fairly common sight on the roads when I was a child. First I see a Triumph Stag convertible. Produced between 1970 and 1977, it had something of a reputation for unreliability. Next comes a Ford Capri. This looks like a Mark III, produced between 78 and 86. This appears to be a Mercedes-Benz 600, although I am no expert. A car much sought after by such beloved political leaders as Ferdinand Marcos, who had four, Deng Xiaoping, and Idi Amin, but also owned by such notables as Jeremy Clarkson, Karen Carpenter, Ringo Starr, and Rowan Atkinson. This Ford Zephyr is probably the oldest car here, although they were still making the Mark IV model up until 1972. This, however, looks like a Mark II, and they stopped making these in 1962. On second thoughts, this Triumph Herald 1200 saloon might be older. They stopped making these in 1971. To me, this seems to have some stylistic similarities with the Ford Zephyr, although the body design was by the Italian Giovanni Michelotti, who also worked for Ferrari, Lancia, Maserati, and British Leyland. I believe this is a Ford Escort Mark II RS 2000. Mark II Ford Escorts were manufactured between 1974 and 1980. Sixth generation Ford Escorts were on sale up until 2002, but production in Argentina continued until 2004. During the 1980s and 90s, the Ford Escort was frequently the best-selling car in the UK. Even today, the name lives on in a car based on the second-generation Ford Focus sold in China. Oh, look, another Mark II Ford Capri. I always associate the Capri with the TV series The Professionals. I seem to remember Bodie and Doyle, played by Lewis Collins and Martin Shaw, seldom missed the opportunity to chase some villains in their Capris, scattering conveniently placed cardboard boxes in their wake. There was a Mark II in the first series, but later series featured Mark IIIs. In fact, they drove many different cars. Series 1 included Rovers and Triumphs, and later they were occasionally seen in a Ford Cortina. Hello, I do believe this is a Scammell show track, a ballast tractor, and one of a handful of vehicles designed specifically for fairground use. If it's genuine, then it is one of only 18 that were built, but the registration doesn't match any of those listed on the Scammell Wikipedia page, so it may be a reproduction. I see the Vintage Japanese Motorcycle Club has also made it. Not sure, but I think this is a Suzuki K11 with an 80cc engine, most likely from the late 1960s, though I'm guessing here. This must be a Kawasaki Z900 RS with a 948cc engine. Not sure how vintage this is. Seems to me that you can still buy it new, unless I am missing something. This strange looking beast is a Can-Am Spider Roadster, manufactured by Bombardier Recreational Products. It has a 998cc engine and a reverse gear. They even make a model for law enforcement. Looks like something from a 1980s Bond film. This Honda CB500T was only manufactured in 1975 and 76 and has a 498cc 5-speed engine. It is derived from the Honda CB450, which preceded it, production ending in 1974. This is one of a number of Honda Goldwing motorcycles on display. You can still buy them if you have £23,000 or more. They have been making these since 1974. I think this white one is a Goldwing GL 1500, manufactured sometime between 1987 and 2000. It has a 1520cc 5-speed engine, and most models also had a reverse gear. Here's another one in blue, also a GL 1500, I think. Anyway, enough of the motorbikes. Next I come across a Ferguson 35 tractor with attached potato planter. In the UK, these were produced between 1956 and 1964. This one must have been made before 1960, because after that time the brand name on the tractor read Massey Ferguson. If the colour scheme is original, it must be earlier than 1957, because after that time they were painted red and grey. Still looking pretty misty. I hope the red arrows can find their way here. The North Yorkshire Moors birds of prey have arrived. This is, I think, a Eurasian eagle owl, one of the largest living species of owl, which is found across most of Europe, much of southern Russia, and as far south as Hong Kong, but not in the UK. I'm guessing this is a gyrfalcon, which usually spends most of its time hunting ptarmigan in Canada or Alaska, the largest falcon in the world, but this bird doesn't seem all that big. Next up is a little owl, not UK native, but has been here since it was introduced in the 19th century. Sadly, it is estimated that the population declined by 24% between 1995 and 2008. This looks like a goshawk to me. Its name is derived from the Old English goose hawk. It is well adapted to weaving its way through woodland and will tackle pigeons, game birds, rabbits and other mammals. Has suffered much persecution in the past and very nearly became extinct in the UK. A snowy owl is next on the list, also known as the Arctic owl or great white owl. Hedwig, the post-carrying messenger from the Harry Potter novels, is a snowy owl. It normally lives in the Arctic, Scandinavia or Canada, but in the winter months it has occasionally been seen as far south as Norfolk. This is a female sparrowhawk, another bird adapted to woodland and known to visit gardens in search of prey. Smaller than the goshawk and more likely to be seen in an urban setting. And finally, a golden eagle, an enormous bird with a wingspan in excess of 2 meters. You are most likely to see it at a birds of prey display, but failing that, look for it soaring over hills and mountains in the Scottish Highlands. They have been persecuted in the past, However, their UK conservation status is green, so for now at least they are not in any danger. Just time for a spot of lunch now. I think I'll go to the Fisherman's Wife on the Khyber Pass, just up the hill from West Pier. Rather good, and you can get beer from the Robin Hood's Bay Brewery, but not the Whitby one. Now it's nearly time for the Red Arrows to arrive. Excitement is mounting. But wait, everything's covered in mist. Oh, here they come. That's it. Nobody saw anything. And the Lancaster bomber that was supposed to follow later, don't think that's turning up either. Oh well, never mind. Doesn't seem to have put the crowds off. And then there's always the band. After a bit of googling, I discovered that this band goes by the name of State of Undress, not to be confused with the US TV series of the same name. They come from Dorset, and judging by their Facebook page, they are having a pretty busy summer. Check them out on Spotify. This song is The Hangman's Daughter and comes from their 2012 album Journeys of the Heart.
The hangman's daughter, the hangman's daughter.
When in Whitby, you are legally obliged to climb the 199 steps up to St Mary's Church and the remains of the Abbey. So off I go. Whitby Abbey started off as a monastery in the 7th century, with Lady Hilda, the abbess of Hartlepool Abbey, as abbess. In 664, the Synod of Whitby was held, at which they finally settled on how to calculate the date of Easter. They followed the Roman method of calculation rather than the Celtic Christian tradition, and agreed to follow Roman traditions in other matters, such as the form of the monastic tonsure. That's shaving of the scalp as a sign of religious devotion. Whitby Abbey had a reputation as a centre of learning for many centuries until Henry VIII left the abbey in ruins in 1540 during the dissolution of the monasteries. The Cholmondeley family and their descendants, the Stricklands, owned the abbey until 1920, when it was transferred to the UK government. In 1914 it sustained considerable damage when shelled by German battle cruisers who were aiming for the Coast Guard station. So, pausing only to pick up a bottle of the local brewery's IPA, I caught the bus back to Scarborough. After tea I went for a wander along the beach in search of the bright lights. Here you can see South Bay. That's the Grand Hotel on the left, which is a Grade 2 listed building. When it was built in 1867, it was one of the largest hotels in the world and cost the princely sum of £100,000. During Victorian times, it was visited by wealthy holidaymakers visiting the spa, but now it is very much at the budget end of the market. It is currently housing refugees from Afghanistan. On the top of the hill on the right is Scarborough Castle. The Normans built a wooden castle in the mid-12th century, which was soon replaced by a stone castle on the orders of Henry II. It was taken into public ownership in 1920. This is the seafront observation wheel. It is erected on the site of the former Futurist Theatre, which was demolished by 2018. In October 2021, the wheel travelled to Hull and then visited Liverpool for Christmas, but it has been back in Scarborough since April 2022 and is due to stay until the end of October. This is the Coney Island Arcade, which was known as Corrigan's until 2008. For about 10 years, starting in 1985, it also housed the World of Holograms, which I believe now is at Lake Windermere. It used to be Bland's Cliff Turkish Baths from 1859 until 1931. This is Scarborough Harbour. There has been a harbour here since the reign of Henry III in the mid-13th century. Scarborough was a major shipbuilding port well into the 19th century. There was also a thriving trade in transporting coal from Newcastle down the east coast to London and also to Europe. And so to bed. That's about it then. Hope you enjoyed it. If you really want to, you can like, subscribe and click the little bell to be notified when I release another video. Bye for now.